The bathroom door creaked open, and my heart stopped as steam curled around me like a shroud. I stood frozen under the shower's warm cascade, my best friend's silhouette framed in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. In that split second, every secret I'd buried for years clawed its way to the surface, threatening to spill out. My name is Cameron, and I'm a 25-year-old graphic designer living in a cramped but charming loft in Seattle. My life, on the surface, is a collage of late-night sketches, coffee runs, and a hum of city life outside my window. But beneath it all, there's a truth I've kept locked away, even from myself, a truth that's about to unravel because of the man standing in my bathroom doorway. Ethan, my best friend since high school. Ethan and I met in sophomore year, bonding over a shared love for indie music and late-night talks about dreams bigger than our small-town roots in Olympia. He's the kind of guy who lights up a room, blonde hair that's always a little messy, brown eyes that seem to see right through you, and a laugh that makes you feel like you're home. We moved to Seattle together after graduation, chasing our ambitions. I landed a gig designing album covers for local bands, while Ethan works as a barista by day and writes poetry by night. Our lives are intertwined, inseparable, but there's one thing I've never told him: I'm in love with him. That morning, I'd overslept after a late night tweaking a client's logo. Ethan was supposed to be at work, so I didn't think twice about leaving the bathroom door unlocked. Big mistake. I was halfway through rinsing shampoo from my hair when I heard the door creak. My eyes snapped open, and there he was, frozen, holding a bag of bagels he'd brought over as a surprise. Cam. Shit. Sorry, Ethan stammered, his face turning crimson as he backed away. It's fine, I yelled, my voice cracking as I fumbled to turn off the water. But it wasn't fine. My heart was racing, not just from the embarrassment, but because of the way his eyes lingered for a fraction of a second, long enough to make me wonder what he saw, what he felt. I wrapped a towel around my waist and stepped out, my wet hair dripping onto the hardwood floor. Ethan was in the kitchen, busying himself with the bagels, avoiding eye contact. The air between us was thick, charged with something I couldn't name. Sorry, man. I didn't know you were, he said, his voice quieter than usual. It's cool, elite. Forcing a laugh. You've seen me in worse states. He chuckled, but it was strained. Yeah, like that time you tried to taste the rainbow with those expired yogurt drinks. We both laughed, but the tension didn't break. I could feel it, the weight of all the things I hadn't said, the glances I'd stolen when he wasn't looking, the way my heart ached every time he talked about his latest date with some girl from his poetry open mic nights. Ethan was straight, or at least I'd always assumed he was. I'd built my entire world around that assumption, keeping my feelings locked away to protect our friendship. But something about that moment in the bathroom felt different. Maybe it was the way his eyes had widened, not just with surprise, but with something else, curiosity, confusion. I didn't know, but it was enough to make me reckless. Ethan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. There's something I need to tell you. He looked up, his hands pausing on the bagel he was slicing. What's up? I opened my mouth, but the words caught in my throat. How do you tell your best friend you're in love with him? How do you risk everything you've built together on a truth that might shatter it? I stood there, dripping wet, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Cam, you okay? He asked, stepping closer. His concern was genuine, but it only made the ache worse. I faltered, then chickened out. I forgot to buy coffee. You want to grab some later? He frowned, like he knew I was dodging something. But he nodded. Sure, man. Whatever you need. The rest of the morning was a blur of small talk and forced normalcy. We ate bagels, talked about his latest poem, and planned a hike for the weekend. But the whole time, I was drowning in what I hadn't said. I kept replaying that moment in the bathroom, the way his eyes had locked onto mine. Was I imagining it? Was there a chance he felt something too? By the time Ethan left, I was a mess. I sank onto my couch, staring at the sketch pad on my coffee table. I've been working on a drawing of him for weeks, a portrait of him laughing, his eyes crinkled in that way that made my chest tight. I hadn't shown it to anyone, especially not him. It was my secret, just like my feelings. But secrets have a way of slipping out. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep hiding. Not from Ethan, not from myself. I didn't know how, but I was going to tell him the truth, even if it meant risking everything. The next few days were torture. Every time I saw Ethan, my resolve to tell him wavered. We'd meet for coffee at our favorite spot, the Brewed Awakening, and he'd ramble about his poetry or the cute barista who'd slipped him her number. I'd nod, smile, and pretend my heart wasn't breaking. But the bathroom incident had cracked something open in me, and I couldn't keep stuffing my feelings back down. Friday night, we ended up at a dive bar in Capitol Hill, the kind of place with sticky floors and neon signs that buzz too loud. Ethan was in his element, charming everyone with his easy grin and quick wit. I watched him from across the table, nursing a beer, my sketch pad burning a hole in my bag. I'd brought it along, the portrait of him tucked between its pages, like a grenade waiting to go off. You've been weird all week, Ethan said, leaning forward, his eyes narrowing. What's going on with you? Cam, I froze, my fingers tightening around the bottle. Nothing, I said too quickly. Just work stress. He didn't buy it. Bullshit. You've been dodging me since the shower thing. Did I freak you out or something? No, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. It's not that. It's complicated. He leaned back, crossing his arms. Then uncomplicated. Talk to me. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the bar was too loud, too crowded, and the weight of what I needed to say felt like it could crush me. Instead, I pulled out my sketch pad and flipped it open to a random page. Not the portrait, just a doodle of a city skyline. Just been drawing a lot, I said, sliding it toward him. He glanced at it, then back at me. This is good, man. But it's not what's eating you. He reached for the sketch pad, his fingers brushing mine, and my breath hitched. For a moment, our eyes locked, and I swear I saw something flicker in his gaze, something that made my heart race. Before I could stop him, he flipped to the next page. My stomach dropped. There was the portrait of him, every detail painstakingly captured, the curve of his jaw, the way his hair fell into his eyes, the spark in his smile. He stared at it, silent, and I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. Cam, he said, his voice low. This is wow. You drew this? I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah. It's you. He looked up, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you show me this before? Because it's not just a drawing. I wanted to scream. because it's every feeling I've been hiding for years. Instead, I shrugged, my voice barely audible. Didn't think it was that good. It's incredible, he said, and there was something in his tone, something soft, almost reverent, that made my chest ache. He closed the sketch pad and handed it back, but his eyes didn't leave mine. You're full of surprises. Cam. The rest of the night was a blur. We drank, laughed, and danced around the truth. But the portrait had changed something. Ethan was quieter, more thoughtful, and I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. It was maddening, exhilarating, terrifying. When we left the bar, the Seattle rain had started, a soft drizzle that clung to our clothes. We walked back to my loft, sharing an umbrella, our shoulders brushing. Every touch felt electric, every glance heavy with meaning. By the time we reached my door, I was trembling, not from the cold, but from the weight of what I needed to say. Ethan, I started, turning to face him. The street lights cast shadows across his face, making him look impossibly beautiful. I need to tell you something. For real this time, he nodded, his expression serious. I'm listening. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. I'm gay, and I'm in love with you. The words hung in the air, raw and exposed. For a moment, Ethan didn't move, didn't speak. Then, slowly, he stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine. Cam, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say. My heart sank. I'd expected rejection, but hearing it, or the possibility of it, still hurt like hell. You don't have to say anything, I said quickly, pulling my hand away. I just needed you to know, but he grabbed my wrist, stopping me. Wait. I'm not saying no. I need time to process this. I nodded, my throat tight. Okay, he let go, and we stood there in the rain, the silence stretching between us. I wanted to believe there was hope in his words, but fear gnawed at me. Had I just ruined everything? The days after my confession were a tightrope walk. Ethan didn't avoid me, but he wasn't himself either. Our usual banter felt forced, and every time our eyes met, there was a question in his gaze I couldn't answer. I laid my heart bare, and now I was waiting for him to decide what to do with it. Work became my escape. I buried myself in designs, spending long hours at my desk, sketching until my hands cramped. But Ethan was everywhere, in the lines of my drawings, in the music playing through my headphones, in the quiet moments when I couldn't stop wondering what he was thinking. Had I pushed him too far? Was he struggling because he didn't feel the same? Or because he did? A week later, he texted me, meet me at the pier. 7 p.m. No explanation. Just those words. My stomach churned as I got ready, pulling on a leather jacket and boots to brace against the chilly Seattle evening. The waterfront was alive with tourists and street performers, the Ferris wheel glowing against the darkening sky. Ethan was waiting by the railing, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his blonde hair catching the light. Hey, I said, my voice cautious. Hey, he replied, turning to face me. His expression was softer than I'd expected, but there was a tension in his shoulders. Thanks for coming. I nodded, my heart racing. What's this about? He took a deep breath, looking out at the water. I've been thinking about what you said. About you being gay. About you and me. My stomach twisted. And he turned to me, his eyes searching mine. I've never thought about guys that way. Not really. But with you, it's different. I don't know what it means, but I know I care about you. More than I've ever cared about anyone. My breath caught. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? Ethan, you don't have to. I'm not finished, he interrupted, his voice firm. I'm scared. Cam. I'm scared of what this could mean, of what it might change. But I'm also scared of losing you. And when you told me how you feel, it made me realize I've been ignoring something in myself for a long time. I stared at him, my mind reeling. Are you saying you might feel something too? He hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. I don't know. But I want to find out. With you, the world seemed to tilt. I'd spent years convincing myself this was impossible, that Ethan was out of reach. And now, here he was, standing on the edge of something new, something terrifying and beautiful. Okay, I said, my voice shaking. So what now? He smiled, a small, nervous smile that made my heart skip. We take it slow. Figure it out together. We walked along the pier, the sound of the waves mixing with the hum of the city. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But there was still a shadow hanging over us, doubt, fear, the weight of what this could mean for our friendship, our lives. The next few weeks were a delicate dance. We spent more time together, but it was different now. Every touch, every glance carried new meaning. One night, we ended up on my couch, watching a cheesy rom-com, our shoulders pressed together. When the credits rolled, Ethan turned to me, his face inches from mine. Cam, he said softly, his hand brushing against mine. Can I try something? My heart pounded. Yeah. He leaned in, slow and hesitant, and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, but set my world on fire. We pulled back. His eyes were wide, like he was seeing me for the first time. Was that okay? He asked, his voice barely audible. More than okay, I said, grinning despite the tears prickling my eyes. We didn't talk much after that. We just sat there, hands intertwined, letting the moment sink in. But even as my heart soared, a part of me wondered, could this really work? Could we navigate this uncharted territory without breaking apart? Falling in love with your best friend is like stepping into a storm. Beautiful, chaotic, and terrifying. Ethan and I were trying, but it wasn't easy. Every step forward came with a new question, a new fear. Were we moving too fast, too slow? What would people think? What do we think? We kept things quiet first, testing the waters. We'd hold hands under the table at coffee shops, steal kisses in the privacy of my loft. But the world outside wasn't as forgiving. Seattle might be progressive, but not everyone was ready to see two guys like us together. One night, we were walking home from a movie when a group of guys shouted slurs from across the street. Ethan's hand tightened around mine, but he didn't let go. Ignore them, he muttered, his jaw clenched. But I couldn't. The words cut deep, reminding me of the fear I'd carried for years, the fear of being seen, of being judged. I pulled my hand away, shoving it in my pocket. Ethan stopped walking, his eyes searching mine. Cam, don't let them get to you, he said, his voice soft but firm. It's not that simple, I snapped, my voice louder than I meant. You're new to this. You don't know what it's like to live with this every day. He flinched, and I immediately regretted my words. I'm trying. Cam, he said quietly. I'm in this with you. I nodded. guilt washing over me. I know. I'm sorry. It's just hard. He stepped closer, his hand finding mine again. We'll figure it out. Together. But the doubts lingered. Ethan was still figuring out his feelings, still navigating this new part of himself. And I was terrified of pushing him too far, of losing him to the pressure of it all. Our friends started to notice the change in us, our closeness, the way we looked at each other. Some were supportive, like our friend Maya, who squealed and hugged us when we told her. Others, like Ethan's coworker Jake, were less kind, making snide comments about going soft. One night, Ethan came over after a rough shift at the coffee shop. He was quiet, his usual spark dimmed. I poured him a glass of wine and sat next to him on the couch. Jake said some shit today, he admitted, staring at the glass. Call me a few names. Said I was confused. My heart sank. He's an asshole. You don't have to listen to him. I know, he said, but his voice was hollow. But it got me thinking, what if he's right? What if I'm just, I don't know, experimenting? The words hit like a punch. Is that what this is to you? I asked, my voice trembling. An experiment? No, he said quickly, turning to face me. That's not what I meant. I'm still figuring out who I am. Cam. And it's scary. But I know I want you in my life. I know I feel something real. I wanted to believe him, but fear was a powerful thing. We talked late into the night, laying bare our insecurities, our hopes. By the time he fell asleep in my arms, I felt a fragile kind of hope. Maybe we could make this work. Maybe love was enough. But the world had other plans. The next morning, I woke to a text from Maya. Check X. Someone posted about you and Ethan. My heart raced as I opened the app. There was a blurry photo of us kissing outside my loft, posted by an anonymous account with a caption that made my blood run cold. Guess who's not so straight anymore? The photo spread like wildfire. By noon, my phone was buzzing with notifications, friends, co-workers, even strangers weighing in on our relationship. Some messages were kind, others cruel. Ethan's phone was no better. He showed up at my loft, his face pale, his hands shaking. Who the hell did this? He demanded, pacing the room. Who even took that picture? I don't know, I said, my voice tight. But it's out there now. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. My boss saw it. My parents. Cam. I wasn't ready for this. The word stung, but I understood. I'd had years to come to terms with my identity. Ethan was still grappling with his. We'll deal with it, I said, trying to sound confident. Together, but dealing with it wasn't easy. Ethan's parents, conservative and religious, called him that night. I could hear their raised voices through the phone, their disappointment cutting through the air. When he hung up, he looked shattered. They want me to come home, he said, his voice hollow. They think I'm confused, that I need to fix this. My heart clenched. What did you tell them? I told them I love you, he said, his eyes meeting mine. But they didn't want to hear it. I pulled him into a hug, holding him tight as he buried his face in my shoulder. For the first time, I realized how much he was risking for me, for us. And it terrified me. The next few days were a storm of whispers and stares. At work, my colleagues were supportive, but I could feel their curiosity, their questions. Ethan's workplace was worse. Jake and a few others made it clear they didn't approve. their comments ranging from subtle jabs to outright hostility. Ethan started pulling away, not from me, but from the world. He stopped going to open mic nights, stopped writing poetry. I could see him retreating, and it scared me. One night, I found him sitting on my balcony, staring at the city lights. I sat next to him, our knees touching. "Talk to me," I said softly. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this," he admitted, his voice breaking. The looks, the comments. My parents, it's too much. I took his hand, my heart aching. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm here." He looked at me, his eyes glistening. "I know. But what if I'm not enough for you? What if I can't handle this?" "You are enough," I said fiercely. "You're more than enough. And we'll figure it out, one step at a time." He leaned his head against my shoulder, and we sat there in silence, the city humming below us. But the fear lingered. The world was testing us, and I wasn't sure we'd pass. Then came the breaking point. Ethan's boss called him into a meeting, citing customer complaints about his lifestyle. It was a flimsy excuse, but the message was clear: conform or leave. Ethan came to my loft that night, his face drawn. "They're looking for a reason to fire me," he said, his voice flat. "I can't keep doing this. Cam, I can't keep fighting everyone." My heart sank. "What are you saying?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with pain. "I'm saying maybe we need a break. Not from us, but from this. The pressure. The world." I felt like I'd been punched. "A break? Ethan, you can't. I don't know what else to do," he snapped, his voice breaking. "I love you, but I'm drowning." I wanted to fight, to beg him to stay, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. So I nodded, my throat tight. "Okay, if that's what you need." He left that night, and I sat alone in my loft, the silence deafening. I'd fought so hard to be honest, to be brave. But what if love wasn't enough? The weeks without Ethan were a blur of emptiness. I went through the motions: work, eat, sleep, but it felt like half of me was missing. My loft, once filled with our laughter, felt like a tomb. I stopped sketching, stopped listening to music. Everything reminded me of him. Maya tried to pull me out of it, dragging me to coffee shops and art galleries. But my heart wasn't in it. "He'll come around," she kept saying, but I wasn't so sure. Ethan had texted a few times, checking in, but his messages were short, distant. He was staying with a cousin in Tacoma, trying to figure things out. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was sadness. One rainy afternoon, I found myself at the Brood Awakening, staring at the table where Ethan and I used to sit. I pulled out my sketch pad, flipping to the portrait of him. It was still there, a reminder of everything we'd been through. I started drawing again, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. The lines came slowly at first, then faster, pouring out my grief, my love, my hope. That's when I heard his voice. "Cam." I looked up, and there he was, Ethan, standing in the doorway, his hair wet from the rain, his eyes nervous but determined. My heart leapt, but I stayed still, afraid to hope. "Can we talk?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from me. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah." He took a deep breath, his hands fidgeting. "I messed up. I got scared, and I ran. But I've been thinking about you every day. About us. I stayed silent, waiting. I talked to my parents, he continued. They're not okay with this, and maybe they never will be. But I realized I don't need their approval. I need you. I love you. Cam. And I'm done running. Tears stung my eyes. You sure about this? Because I can't lose you again. He reached across the table, taking my hand. I'm sure. I'm all in. We left the coffee shop and walked through the rain, hand in hand, not caring who saw. Back at my loft, we talked for hours about the future, about the challenges we'd face, about the love that had carried us this far. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't be easy, but it was ours. Months later, we stood together at an open mic night. Ethan reading a poem he'd written about us, about love that grows in the cracks of fear, about courage found in the quiet moments. The crowd applauded, and I felt a swell of pride, of hope. We'd faced the world's judgment, our own doubts, and come out stronger. In the end, love wasn't just about the big moments, the confessions, the kisses. It was about the small ones, the way Ethan's hand fit in mine, the way he laughed at my terrible puns, the way we built a life together, one brave step at a time. And as we stood there, surrounded by friends and strangers, I knew we'd found something worth fighting for.